Okay, here we go. Okay, Jeff, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Welcome, Jeff Klein.
Thanks, Cole. Thanks, everyone. I'm sure you're all aware that the entire Middle East region is very tense following Israel's assassination of Hamas's leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran and an important Hezbollah leader in Beirut last week. Uh, People are expecting some kind of response. Nobody knows how severe it will be, but obviously it's a very dangerous situation. Um, it also points out that it wasn't just an accident that this happened. These two assassinations happened close together. Israel has long had an interest in widening the war and getting U.S. involved in a wider war, especially against Iran. And the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, the political leader of Hamas, may have sidetracked or blocked any progress in terms of negotiations toward a ceasefire, which again, the Israelis clearly don't want and want someone to blame. The U.S. is, very active diplomatically and is somewhat of a panic in response to the threat of a larger regional war in which U.S. assets in the Middle East may be endangered. We have, as you know, we have bases and military presence in almost every country in the Middle East except for Iran. So there's been a diplomatic push to try to get, to cool down the situation. And At the same time, there's been leaks of uh, disagreements between the U.S. and Israel over these assassinations and some dissatisfaction. But practically speaking, this is meaningless because the U.S. has also announced that they will defend Israel if it's attacked in any way with U.S. assets. I might point out, by the way, that there was a poll the last day or two that showed the big majority of Americans are opposed to any direct U.S. military involvement with troops to defend Israel. Uh, Hamas response was a kind of defiance. They appointed as successor to Ismail Haniyeh, Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas in Gaza, and someone who was very much involved and continues to be involved in the military struggle. And this is mostly symbolic because, of course, he can't really provide leadership to Hamas outside of Gaza because it's impossible to communicate on any kind of regular basis. But it was a sign of defiance. And meanwhile, even the Russians are trying to urge a restraint on all parties in the Middle East, which is unusual that the U.S. and the Russians are both advocating against a wider war. But again, with the U.S. committed to defend Israel, it's hard to see where this might go. This week also, it was confirmed the long story of Israeli torture in the against Palestinian prisoners it's holding has been reported on and off and was confirmed in a very lengthy report by an Israeli human rights organization, B'Tselem. And of course, it's causing turmoil in Israel because while part of the establishment wants to at least have the look of accountability to this, there are large numbers of people in Israel that are protesting any holding accountable any of the people who committed crimes against Palestinian prisoners. And so again, it's another reflection of the sort of political divide in Israel between the liberal Zionists and the more right-wing fascist Zionists. We should also note in the West Bank, it hasn't been getting as much publicity, but the combination of the Israeli armed forces and the settlers have been unrelenting in stepping up their attacks against Palestinians in the West Bank. And this started long before October 7th. And it's sort of a new level of things where Israel is using airstrikes against Palestinians in the West Bank, something that didn't happen before last year. So not much publicity in that, given the Gaza situation, but Palestinians are aware of it, and the situation in the West Bank is very dire. Coming back to the U.S., you all know that Kamala Harris is chosen as her vice presidential nominee. Walz of Minnesota, Tim Walz, and we should have few illusions that he's really very good on our issue, but he's at least average or slightly better than average, and sort of much better than the other candidate, which the Israel lobby had been pushing for weeks, Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, who is basically an AIPAC Democrat. There's a lot that's attractive about Walz politically, and at least he is respectful of differences within the Democratic Party on the issue of Gaza. Whether that will change, whether policy will change at all between him and Harris is not certain, but the tone is certainly different, and at least rejecting Shapiro, who has been very vocal in calling pro-Palestinian demonstrators like the KKK, pushing for repression on campuses, and otherwise as a kind of corporate, kind of right-wing Democrat, although he poses as a liberal or a progressive. So it's a kind of limited victory that Walz is the nominee for vice president, but we'll have to see where that develops. Definitely there was a defeat for our cause in Missouri, where Cori Bush, who was a member of the squad, lost her primary election against a candidate which was recruited by AIPAC and financed to the tune of many, many millions of dollars. Typical in this cycle, the ads did not mention Israel, but Cori Bush was vulnerable for a variety of reasons, like Jamal Bowman in New York, and AIPAC sort of saw this as an opportunity to show their power. And a reminder that AIPAC has not gone after other members of the squad, including Ayanna Pressley, who don't have the same, who are not vulnerable in the same way. AIPAC wants to show that it cannot be defeated, and uses these victories as leverage, as kind of protection money for other candidates to warn them off. So, it's definitely a defeat, but the fact that AIPAC had to spend $10 million or more, much of it raised from Republicans, to defeat a progressive candidate, shows that, they have to struggle to wield their political power now in a way that they didn't have to years ago. And by the way, Walz, who hasn't been in Congress for a while, if he were in Congress today, I suspect his positions would be somewhat like Jim McGovern's. That is not militantly opposing Israel and AIPAC, but a skeptic. And and there's some hope that he'll have a good influence on policy if he gets elected. So that's all I have. Obviously, there's more, but those are the main points.
Great.